There are moments when the universe holds its breath, when time itself seems to pause, waiting for us to choose who we want to be in the face of the inevitable. Maya Chen discovered this truth 37 floors above the city, with nothing but glass between her and eternity. Some say that in our final moments, we see our entire lives flash before us. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes we see who we really are underneath all the fear we've been carrying. Maya had always been afraid of heights. As a child, she couldn't even climb the jungle gym without her palms sweating and her heart racing. Her mother used to joke that Maya would never be caught dead in a skyscraper, let alone working in one. But life has a way of pushing us toward the very things that terrify us most. At 28, Maya was a structural engineer for Morrison & Associates, one of the most prestigious architectural firms in the city. Every day, she took the elevator to the 37th floor of the Meridian Tower, her stomach lurching with each ascending floor. She'd grip the handrail and count backwards from 10, a ritual that barely kept her anxiety at bay. Her colleagues never knew about her phobia. To them, she was the brilliant, composed engineer who could calculate load-bearing capacities in her sleep and spot potential structural failures from blueprints alone. The irony wasn't lost on her that someone afraid of heights had become an expert in building them. But Maya had learned long ago that sometimes we must walk directly into our fears to find our strength. Her father, a construction worker who died in a scaffolding accident when she was 15, had always told her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was feeling the fear and choosing to act anyway. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Maya arrived at the office with her usual thermos of coffee and her worn leather briefcase, the same one her father had given her when she started college. She was reviewing stress calculations for a new residential complex when the first tremor hit. It was subtle at first, just a gentle swaying that made her coffee ripple in its cup. Living in California, minor earthquakes were part of life, but this felt different. Maya looked up from her computer screen and noticed her colleagues exchanging nervous glances. The building's gentle sway was becoming more pronounced, and somewhere in the distance, car alarms began to wail. She reached for her phone to check the seismic monitoring app she'd installed years ago, but before she could open it, the second wave hit. This time, the building lurched violently to the left. Books tumbled from shelves, computer monitors slid across desks, and the lights flickered ominously. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched cracks spider across the conference room window. All her knowledge about structural engineering suddenly felt useless against the raw, primal terror coursing through her veins. "Everyone out!" shouted her supervisor, Tom, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Use the stairs, not the elevators." Maya grabbed her briefcase and joined the stream of panicked employees rushing toward the stairwell. But as they reached the emergency exit, another violent shake sent several people tumbling. The stairwell door had warped in its frame and wouldn't budge. Tom and 2 other men threw their shoulders against it, but it held fast. "The other stairwell," someone screamed, but Maya knew it was on the opposite end of the building. With the way the structure was swaying, she wasn't sure they'd make it in time. That's when she heard it, a sound that every structural engineer dreads. The low, ominous groan of steel beams under stress, the sharp crack of concrete beginning to fail. Maya looked up at the ceiling and saw the telltale signs. Hairline fractures spreading like lightning across the surface, dust raining down like snow. Her training kicked in, and she quickly calculated the building's oscillation patterns, the frequency of the swaying, the probable points of failure. The numbers painted a terrifying picture. They had maybe 30 seconds before catastrophic structural collapse. "The windows!" Maya shouted above the noise. "We need to break the windows!" Her colleagues stared at her in horror. 37 floors up, breaking a window seemed like suicide, but Maya knew something they didn't. She'd studied the building's blueprints extensively when her firm had been contracted for renovation work 2 years earlier. The Meridian Tower had been built in the 1980s with experimental safety features, including deployable emergency slides that could be activated from the exterior windows in case of fire or structural failure. "Trust me," she yelled, grabbing a fire extinguisher from the wall. The building lurched again, and she could hear the horrifying sound of steel cables snapping somewhere above them. Maya ran toward the massive floor-to-ceiling window that faced east toward the morning sun. Her reflection stared back at her, a young woman with wild hair and terrified eyes, clutching a fire extinguisher like a weapon. Behind her, she could see her colleagues frozen in disbelief and terror. This was the moment, the 1 second before everything changed forever. She raised the fire extinguisher above her head, knowing that once she brought it down, there would be no going back. The wind would rush in, the safety systems would deploy, or they wouldn't, and they'd all plummet to their deaths. Her entire life had led to this single moment of choice. And then something extraordinary happened. Maya turned back to look at her colleagues. These people she'd worked alongside for 3 years, shared countless lunches with, complained about, deadlines with, celebrated promotions with. Tom, whose wife had just had their first baby. Sarah, who was saving up for her wedding. Marcus, who brought homemade cookies for everyone's birthday. In that split second before impact, Maya felt something she'd never experienced before. Complete and utter fearlessness. Not because she wasn't afraid, she was terrified, but because she'd found something stronger than fear. She'd found purpose. She turned and laughed. It wasn't hysteria or madness. It was pure, crystalline joy. The laugh of someone who had discovered that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about loving something more than you fear losing it. Maya laughed because she realized that all her life, she'd been so afraid of falling that she'd forgotten how to fly. The fire extinguisher connected with the window in a shower of sparkling glass. The emergency slides deployed exactly as Maya had hoped, inflating rapidly in the rushing wind. One by one, her colleagues slid to safety, their screams of terror gradually transforming into cries of relief and amazement. Maya went last, her laughter echoing off the building's facade as she spiraled down through the morning air. The Meridian tower collapsed completely 4 minutes after they evacuated, pancaking floor by floor in a cloud of dust and debris, but all 43 employees from the 37th floor survived, thanks to a woman who chose to laugh in the face of death. Maya never returned to her job as a structural engineer. Instead, she founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to earthquake preparedness and emergency response training. She travels the world now, teaching people that sometimes the most dangerous thing we can do is let fear make our decisions for us. She still gets nervous in tall buildings, but she no longer sees that fear as a weakness. Fear, she learned, is just information. It tells us when something matters, when the stakes are high, when we need to dig deeper than we've ever dug before. People often ask Maya how she knew to laugh in that moment, how she found the courage to act when everyone else was paralyzed by terror. Her answer is always the same. I didn't find courage. Courage found me the moment I realized that some things are worth being afraid for. There's a photo on Maya's desk now, a grainy cell phone picture taken by a bystander as the slides deployed from the Meridian Tower. In it, you can see a figure at the window, silhouetted against the morning sky, arms raised in what looks like celebration rather than desperation. Maya keeps it there not as a reminder of how close she came to death, but as a reminder of how fully she chose to live. The universe holds its breath in moments like these, waiting to see who will choose to become. Maya Chen chose laughter over fear, action over paralysis, love over loss. And in that choice, she discovered that falling and flying are sometimes separated by nothing more than a single second, and the courage to laugh. What would you choose in your 1 second before? If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to 1 Second Before for more tales of the moments that define us. Share your own 1 second before moment in the comments below. Sometimes, sharing our stories of courage can give others the strength to find their own laughter in the face of fear.